Who did this?
This boy has that gift.
Give him time to figure out what he wants. I can't learn anything from you unless you want to talk about you.
I love you.
Welcome to Screen Recaps, and today we are going to recapping the movie Good Will Hunting. Will Hunting sits reading a book in his house when his close friend Chucky Sullivan arrives to pick him up. Will joins Chucky and drive away. At M.I.T, Professor Gerald assigns his students a difficult theorem to solve by the end of the semester, promising that whoever solves it will be recognized in the M.I.T newspaper. Will, a janitor at M.I.T, quietly mops the floor as he gazes in wonder at the theorem equation written on the classroom board. After the students leave, Will studies the complex theorem. Later, Will and Chucky go to a bar where Will is in a cheerful mood, but decides to leave early. At home, Will works on solving the theorem from earlier that day. The next day, during his janitorial duties, Will solves the theorem on the classroom board. As Will and Chucky play baseball, Will complains that Chucky is crowding the plate as he hits him repeatedly. Chucky suggests going to a Harvard bar next week, and Will seems to agree. Gerald attends an M.I.T alumni reunion where some of his former students approach him about a theorem that has been solved. He is surprised to see the solution written on the board, as he did not teach anyone the theorem. Gerald asks the students if they solved it, but no one claims responsibility. Meanwhile, Will, Chucky, Morgan, and Billy go to a baseball game. There, Will spots his childhood bully in the crowd. The group decides to leave the game early to get food. On their drive to the restaurant, they notice Will's bully misbehaving again. The friends get into an altercation with the bully, leading to the cops arriving and arresting Will. Later, when Gerald enters his classroom, an unusually high number of students are present. They are all curious to know who solved the theorem. Gerald asks the mysterious problem solver to identify themselves, but no one speaks up. After class, Will is solving an equation on the board when Gerald harshly accuses him of graffiti. Will walks away quickly. Looking closer at Will's work, Gerald realizes he is actually a gifted student. Despite his arrest, Will goes to the Harvard bar that night with his friends as originally planned. Meanwhile, Chucky lies to two Harvard students about sharing a history class with one of them in an attempt to flirt with them. Clark arrives and begins bitterly insulting Chucky, arrogantly flaunting his historical knowledge to belittle Chucky's limited familiarity with the subject. Will interjects, outwitting Clark and calling out his plagiarism and lack of originality, leaving Clark embarrassed. Clark tries hurling insults back at Will, but Will handles the situation well, and Clark backs down. Later, Schuyler, one of the girls Chucky was flirting with earlier, approaches Will. Showing interest, she gives Will her number, and they discuss going out sometime. Gerald visits the Buildings and Grounds office looking for Will, but is told Will didn't come to work today. They offer to contact Will's parole officer since Will got the job through him. In court, Will justifies hitting a police officer. The judge notes Will's record of misconduct and mentions his turbulent upbringing in various foster homes, having been removed from 3 due to severe abuse. Will's charges are not dismissed. Bail is set at $50,000. Afterwards, Will calls Schuyler from jail to check on her and ask if they could still hang out soon. Will half-heartedly agrees to Gerald's conditions of working on math and seeing a therapist. Though he works on math with Gerald, and they seem to enjoy it, Will takes the therapy requirement lightly, visiting different therapists but struggling to open up and mocking them instead. Ignoring Gerald's guidance, Will remains closed off. Finally, Gerald arranges for his old college roommate, Sean McGuire, now a therapist, to counsel Will. Gerald visits Sean at his office, and they nostalgically recall losing touch after Sean's wife passed away. Meanwhile, Will tells his friend Chucky about his probation and mandated counseling. Knowing Will is exceptionally bright despite his arrogance, Gerald had convinced Sean to counsel him, noting their shared South Boston roots. When Will meets with Sean, he is casually dismissive. As they discuss books and exercise, Will remains conceited. Commenting on a painting in Sean's office, Will mockingly makes callous assumptions about Sean's late wife, provoking Sean to sternly remind Will. After Will leaves, Gerald genuinely assures Sean that he understands if Sean doesn't want to see Will again. However, Sean is ready to meet with Will the following week. That night, Sean stays up late, lost in contemplation. Meanwhile, Will spends time with Schuyler, who mentions her elite education and plans to study medicine at Stanford after graduation. The two enjoy each other's company and have a pleasant time together. When Will meets with Sean as scheduled, Sean takes him outside to the lake. He tells Will he reflected on his remarks about the painting, which is why he was up all night. Sean realizes Will is just a young man without much life experience. Although Will has never left Boston, he could discuss artistic literature at length. However, he couldn't describe the scent inside the Sistine Chapel or the beauty of its ceiling in person. Similarly, Will could talk a lot about women but not truly understand the contentment of someone's presence. If asked about war, he would know nothing of first-hand experience. Sean realizes Will has made assumptions about his life based only on a painting, presuming to understand experiences he hasn't actually had. Though Will is an orphan himself who endured hardship, Sean knows you can't grasp someone's life just by reading a book about it. You have to be willing to open up and share your personal experiences. At first, Will seems too scared to be vulnerable, but later, after Sean leaves him to reflect, Will slowly comes around. He calls Schuyler one rainy night from a payphone but doesn't speak. At their next therapy session, he remains silent, and Sean understands Will must choose to talk when he's ready. Eventually, Will does open up, first by joking around, then proudly sharing how he went on a date without worrying about Schuyler. Sean calls Will an amateur and insists that Will doesn't know what he's doing, saying Schuyler is different from other women Will has been with. Sean says Will should call Schuyler, but Will says he doesn't want to ruin their current situation by getting to know her better, thinking it will make their relationship dull and boring. Sean mocks Will's approach, saying that with this behavior, Will will get through life never really knowing anyone. Sean mentions his own wife's little habits that only he knew about. They laugh together as Sean says these trivial memories are what truly matters since people choose who they let into their worlds. Sean reminds Will that while he isn't perfect, neither is Schuyler. They just have to figure out if they're perfect for each other, and the only way to do that is by giving it a shot. When Will asks if Sean has ever thought about getting remarried, Sean shows his loyalty to his dead wife. Will uses Sean's own statement against him, saying Sean will also get through life never really knowing anyone. Will goes to visit Schuyler, apologizes for ghosting her, and asks if they can go out again. Schuyler tells Will that she is busy with university work and needs to complete an assignment analyzing a proton spectrum for ibogamine. Will quickly finds the analysis she needs and returns, eager to spend time with her despite her busy schedule. They go to a dog race together where Schuyler's dog comes in second place and wins. During their time together, Will shares that he grew up in South Boston, and Schuyler asks him about his experiences and his 12 older brothers, expressing interest in meeting them someday. Later, Will asks Sean if he has any regrets about meeting his wife. Sean says that while every relationship has pros and cons, he does not regret meeting her. When asked how he knew she was the one, Sean fondly recalls the exact date they met at a baseball game years ago. He mentions highlights of the game, but admits he missed parts of it because he was preoccupied getting to know his future wife. Will teases Sean for missing the game, but Sean insists he has no regrets about choosing to spend time with his wife over watching the full game. After their outing, Will and Schuyler continue their date and grow closer. Schuyler asks Will when he will show her his place and introduce her to his friends and brothers. Will says he will take her to meet them soon. Chucky, Billy, and Morgan get together with Will and Schuyler. They share funny stories and chat. But Will still seems reluctant to let Schuyler into his personal life. Chucky teases him, saying if she saw where he lived, she would lose interest. Will manages to get Chucky's car keys from him. Meanwhile, Gerald meets with Sean to discuss Will's future. He says Will has been getting many job offers that fit his potential, so Sean should talk to him. Sean doesn't think Will is ready yet. Their conversation grows heated as they disagree. Sean wants Will to figure out his career path himself, but Gerald wants Will to pursue math. He reveals he sent Will to a job interview. However, Will sent Chucky in his place instead. Chucky acts casually at the interview, leaving the company representatives confused. Schuyler asks Will if he has a photographic memory, given his intelligence and how easily he masters difficult subjects like organic chemistry just by studying for fun. Will demonstrates his natural academic talent. He and Schuyler grow close. Later, Schuyler expresses her desire for Will to join her in California. which becomes serious when Will reveals his fear of abandonment stemming from childhood trauma as an abused orphan who lied about having brothers. Though Skylar professes her love, Will rejects it, devastating her. Tom helps Will recognize Gerald's hard work and support. When Gerald asks about a job interview, tension rises as Will admits he sent someone else, angering Gerald. Will complains he's tired of explaining himself, but Gerald notes appreciation would be appropriate. Will arrogantly solves a math proof with ease while Gerald struggles, then burns it as Gerald sadly admits Will's wasted potential. At an NSA job interview, Will wittily rejects their offer. When Sean asks if Will has a soulmate, he denies it and defensively states low-paying jobs lack honor. Sean tries to understand Will better by asking what he truly wants to do with his life, but Will avoids the question impractically. Frustrated, Sean asks Will to leave since he won't tolerate such foolishness. Later, Will and Skylar share a bittersweet phone call. He calls to check in before her flight to California. Though she tells Will she loves him, he doesn't respond. Alone on a bench, Will watches as Skylar boards her plane. Gerald is upset that Will skipped his therapy session with Sean. At the construction site, Will and Chucky talk, and Chucky makes Will see how he's wasting his potential and being ungrateful for his intellect. Sean and Gerald have a fierce argument about Will, with Sean defending him, saying Will has suffered from abandonment issues his whole life and is emotionally scarred. Gerald just wants Will to pursue math, angering Sean. They furiously yell and resent each other for past mistakes. Will enters, and Gerald leaves. Sean mentions sending Will's file to the judge. They discuss experiencing physical abuse. Sean helps Will realize none of what happened is his fault. Will breaks down crying and hugs Sean tightly. Later, alone on the bus, Will spends time reflecting. Sean and Will meet for their final counseling session. Will mentions his new job, secured through an opportunity from Gerald. Sean gives Will his number, and they hug goodbye. For Will's 21st birthday, his friends reveal the car they built him. The group celebrates together joyfully. Gerald visits Sean, and the two reconcile, moving past old grudges. Will drives to Sean's and leaves a note. Chucky and friends arrive at Will's to pick him up, only to find him gone. Chucky is happy Will finally stepped out of his comfort zone. Sean reads the note. Will ditched the job to see Skylar, which makes Sean happy. Will begins a life-affirming road trip to California, ready to start over with Skylar and embrace an unpredictable future.
I thought I was